Deep in the mountains of Aso, where volcanic smoke drifts across empty valleys and forests swallow old roads, there are stories about abandoned houses that still remain hidden among the hills. The region surrounding Mount Aso is famous for its enormous volcanic caldera, ancient shrines, earthquakes, and isolated villages that once depended on farming and mountain trade. Many villages in the Aso area slowly disappeared over the decades. Some were damaged by earthquakes, others by volcanic activity, and many simply lost their population as younger generations moved to cities. Empty wooden homes began to rot beside forgotten roads. In Japan, these abandoned places are often called akiya or heikyo, silent ruins left behind by time. People who travel through the mountains of Aso often describe an atmosphere unlike anywhere else in Japan. The fog moves suddenly through cedar forests. The wind whistles through broken windows. Entire roads disappear into thick volcanic mist. Some locals believe the mountains themselves are sacred and inhabited by ancient spirits connected to the volcano. The forgotten village beneath the ash. Long ago, according to stories passed through nearby towns, there was a small farming settlement hidden deep beyond the main roads of Aso. The village sat near a forest path where travelers once crossed the mountains using old stone roads from the Edo period. The people there raised horses, grew vegetables in volcanic soil, and lived quietly beneath the shadow of Mount Aso. At night, the villagers could hear the distant rumble of the volcano. Older residents believed the mountain was alive. They said the earth breathed beneath them. When smoke rose heavily from the crater, villagers left offerings at small roadside shrines hidden in the forest. Fox statues covered in moss guarded the paths. Bells hanging from wooden gates rang softly in the wind. Then the disasters began. First came the earthquakes. The ground shook violently enough to crack stone walls and split narrow mountain roads. Water from underground springs turned muddy. Some homes collapsed. After that came heavy ashfall from volcanic activity, covering crops and poisoning fields. Families began leaving one by one. A father would move to Kumamoto city for work. A son would leave for Tokyo and never return. An elderly couple would remain behind until winter became too harsh. Soon, only a handful of people remained in the mountain settlement. Then came the strange stories. Travelers passing through the forest at night claimed they saw lights inside abandoned homes. Some heard the sound of a shamisen drifting through the trees despite no one living there. Others reported hearing footsteps behind them on empty roads. One truck driver supposedly stopped near the village after seeing a woman standing beside the road during heavy fog. She wore old-fashioned clothing stained dark from rain and ash. When he rolled down the window to ask if she needed help, she vanished. Only the sound of insects remained. The driver later learned there were no occupied homes anywhere nearby. The house at the end of the path. The most feared building in the area was said to stand at the very edge of the abandoned village. A two-story wooden farmhouse. Its roof had partially collapsed. Trees grew through the floorboards. Broken sliding doors moved slowly whenever the wind entered the halls. Local teenagers dared each other to visit it during summer nights. Most never made it beyond the entrance. According to rumors, the final family who lived there refused to abandon the village even after everyone else had gone. The grandmother believed the mountain spirits protected their home. During one particularly violent earthquake, part of the hillside behind the house collapsed. Afterward, neighbors claimed the family disappeared without explanation. No official record confirmed what happened. But the house remained untouched for decades. Visitors described strange details inside. Bowls still sitting on a dining table. Old calendars frozen on the same month. Children's sandals near the doorway. A radio that sometimes emitted static despite no electricity. Some explorers claimed photographs taken inside the house later showed shadowy figures standing behind broken screens. Others said they heard whispering in empty rooms. One urban explorer from Kyushu reportedly entered the house during winter. He later wrote online that the silence inside felt wrong, as though the building itself was listening. He also claimed every clock inside the house had stopped at exactly the same time. The Tunnel Road. Near many abandoned areas in Kyushu, ghost stories often gather around old tunnels and mountain passes. Similar legends exist throughout southern Japan, including stories connected to isolated villages and haunted mountain roads. In the Aso region, an old road leading toward the abandoned settlement became feared after sunset. Drivers reported seeing movement between trees. Some described pale figures standing near roadside mirrors. Others claimed their car radios suddenly filled with static while passing the forest. During rainy nights, fog from the volcano rolled so thick across the road that visibility disappeared completely. A delivery driver once claimed he saw lights glowing inside several abandoned homes while driving through the mountains shortly after midnight. When he returned the next morning, every house was empty and dark. No footprints surrounded the buildings. Only volcanic ash. Reality behind the legends. The haunted reputation of abandoned villages in Kumamoto grew stronger after the devastating 2016 earthquakes that damaged many roads, buildings, and tourist areas around Aso. Some businesses and structures near Mount Aso were abandoned afterward, creating an eerie atmosphere that fueled urban legends online. Japan's countryside also faces a real problem of depopulation. Thousands of villages across rural regions now contain empty homes because younger residents move to large cities. In isolated mountain areas, nature quickly consumes abandoned places. Forests grow over roads. Animals enter homes. Wind and weather create strange sounds that easily inspire ghost stories. But in places like Aso, where volcanic mountains dominate the landscape and ancient spiritual traditions remain strong, those stories feel more believable. Especially at night. Especially in the fog. The Last Visitor. One final story still circulates among paranormal enthusiasts in Kyushu. A group of college students supposedly visited the abandoned Aso village several years ago to film a horror video. They parked near the forest entrance and walked toward the ruined houses carrying flashlights. At first, everything seemed normal. Empty buildings. Broken glass. Wind moving through cedar trees. Then one student noticed smoke rising from the chimney of the old farmhouse at the end of the village. The group froze. Someone was inside. Or something was. One of them called out. No answer came. But slowly, the front sliding door began opening by itself. The students ran back toward their car. As they reached the road, one turned around and claimed he saw several figures standing silently between the houses, watching them from the darkness. When they reviewed their footage later, most of the recording had become distorted with static. But near the end of the video, just before they fled, a faint sound could supposedly be heard in the background. A woman softly humming an old Japanese lullaby. And then, silence.